Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Dreamers Game 1, where we are playing Yomi. This is turn 61. Let's jump into things. Okay, so we've got a couple of site searches and things like that. Horror Specs found nothing, Augury found nothing, Horror Specs found nothing, Gnome Lore found nothing, and that was pretty much it. So nothing to report as far as like gem income goes, but we do have two dire portents that go up this turn. Helheim has cast a global enchantment. I hate it when it doesn't have a description or anything like that. And then Ubar has wounded the mother of all, right? So this is Earthblood Deepwell. So let's take a look at what is going on here real quick. We have Helheim has just put up Vengeful Water, and Ubar has put up Earthblood Deepwell. And this is bad news for us, kind of all around. Because we didn't put... I mean, bad news, maybe good news, right? We were potentially going to put up Well of Misery last turn, but we paused because we wanted to get into a better position and do it this turn. So now we're in a sticky situation, right? And I don't, you know, it's arguable whether which would have been preferable, right? Like whether it would have been preferable to do it last turn or not, right? And it really just depends. It's the scenario of if we had done Well of Misery last turn and we got lucky, right, and ours fired first, then we would have been put into a slot, and then someone else would have been rolling against random who gets selected, and then who gets beat, right? So we would have had a much better chance of succeeding. But if we had gone last, right, if we had randomly had our global go up last, then we would have had to challenge one of these global slots, etc., and we might have failed. So it might have just been one big bust. But so that's the kind of like pro and con. But like the other flip side is now that, you know, maybe we would have lost and we would have lost all those death gems. So it's good that that didn't happen. But also, now to potentially do get it up, we're going to have to wait to see what we can do about some of these other globals, etc. Or we're going to have to take that gamble to just throw it up ourselves, and that might end very poorly. Like, a couple of these, for example, like Mother Oak, Riches from Beneath, Stellar Focus, I kind of expect all of those to be very low overcasts. Vengeful Water, though, I expect it to be a little bit of an overcast, and Earthblood Deepwell, I would actually expect at this point to probably be a pretty hefty overcast, right? But I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, so globals, we have Helheim with Vengeful Water and Ubar with Earthblood Deepwell, and both of those are semi-bad news for us. Semi-bad news, kind of life. What do we got up next? We've got some battles. So we get to witness Hinnom attacking some indies in Shambolic. So here's this, you know, the little group of Rephites and Long Dead, and they're just gonna pop these militia. There's like no real chance that the militia do anything against them. They have piercing weapons. Skeletons are resistant to piercing. So, yeah, no damage. But we moved into Shambolic with one of our Dionis. So we get to have a wonderful bump. Only downside is Sunei does have a Shadowbrand here, and Shadowbrands are not going to be very effective against the skeletons. Let's see how this goes. It's just skeletons, so we have nothing else really going on. Summon Earth Power, Fire Shield, Fire Shield will do okay against these Long Deads. Actually, Fire Shield will do very good against them. But the Rephites actually have fire resistance, so it doesn't do as good against them. It's still useful, potentially, but not as good. And we actually fly. And we fly right on over to the Mound King and immediately obliterate it in a single hit. That was some of the best like target selection ever. Like that was really good. There is only a single, yeah. So we break the leadership very quickly, and this is it probably wouldn't matter too terribly much. I don't think that they would have beaten us in the long run anyways, with the combination of the fire shield and just singular attacks and the fucking vine shield. Like I think our Dione would have been just fine, but this was a very succinct turnout for this situation, so that was very pleasant. We completely annihilate this group, which is good, because if this group had rejoined with the other army, it would have made the other army that much more robust and annoying to deal with. So very cool. We have lost Hinnom in response. Obviously, we didn't leave anything there. We pulled off. We attacked into the Parched Expanse, and this is with Junichi. And there's just a couple of PD here, no big deal. Soul Vortex. Assassinate the one in the back. Assassinate the leader. And dead. Very nice. And then we get to see Lanka attacking in Eagle Reach Mountains. And this is just against some PD as well, so nothing really doing there. So we have a ratio this turn. Battles against Hinnom. 2 wins and 1 loss. And the loss was really just him retaking the province that we had walked off of. Not much of a loss there. We've got some events in Cormark. We have a Rebirth event in Cormark. Event in Hinwood, a local wizard has been lynched after allegations of turning a peasant into a frog. So we gained some fire gems and some astral pearls. Magic gems have been found in the prime of the season in Tapanete. So 9 or 11 nature gems. I was going to say nature, and I said 9. And then we have a Vengeful Crone has cursed the land. So Misfortune +3 in Sulfuria. So for events, we have Fire +5, Astral +1, and Nature +11. A turnout of +17 gems. Not bad for a turn, honestly. That's pretty decent, I will say. There's a worldwide event. Enchantment rituals are cheaper this month, so that's cool. Not super useful for us, but cool. Cormark is unharmed, and then we actually got this. Mary Canker, May Canker, and Lee Canker, goddesses of... goddesses of Saramatia have been permanently vanquished. In the end, she did not rule a single province, and she now has nowhere to return. So, this has been a long time coming, right? Ubar has been slowly trying to, well, deal with Helheim, but also finish off Saramatia. So, Saramatia really has not had an impact in the game for a very long time, but they have finally been bested. Very similar to the scenario with Agartha, right? Like, had not had a impact on the game for a very long time, but has finally been bested. And so, yeah, nation defeated, Saramatia vanquished. Goodbye, Saramatia, and GG. Okay, what else do we have going on? We've got a lot of scurrying movement back and forth. A lot of this stuff is, as per usual, just moving Dione around, but there are a couple of things that I do want to point out. We are bringing a Dione over to the below for multiple purposes. I'm trying to make sure that I have a Dione in all of our big like locations to be kind of like the leader there, or so that we can throw gear on and use them as defense points for any surprise attacks, right? But also, this particular Dione that is going over there is going to be able to do corpse construction in the below while we're waiting. We are sending out some patrollers to Llama to try to patrol the unrest down here. This is because of the Brigand Lair. We're probably going to, if possible, just leave the patrollers there for the rest of existence. Because this isn't a terrible province, and we could actually be making a bit more income here if we didn't have all of this unrest. So, seems like a thing to potentially do. We are also sending reinforcements northward or northwestward towards the Hinam fight. So we have a group being led by Akeno here, right? Almost 120 Ko-Onis heading that way. And then we also have this group led by Taro, which is 100 Aka-Onis that we moved from Grey Mountains last turn. So 100 extra Aka-Onis and almost 120 extra Ko-Onis is a big deal. That's a lot of strength right there. Siege strength on its own, these Aka-Onis are 266, and that's not in Unrest. Well, no, that is in Turmoil 3, so they are fully activated. Same with these guys. So, anyways, that's hopefully going to be good reinforcements, although we might not have them in time to make any real difference, right, on any of the stuff that's going to happen. So, aside from all that, in the actual Hinam area, Hinam doesn't have very much left. They have a handful of provinces. We are going to raid some of those provinces, Relothia and the Grey Mountains. This is dicey. He could just strike out, attack, right, to try to catch some raiders, and if he does so, he has a very good chance of doing that. And if he does, he does, right? It's kind of it's one of the risks that we have to take at this point to try to finish Hinam off. The other thing is we are reinforcing with Shoichi. So Shoichi has another 70 Ko-Oni to pull into this group, bringing us close to 400 units. We're going to try to pad that out with some summoning. We'll go over this during the ritual. But also, we're basically trying to wait until we are ready to do things with our Fairy Queen, right? So the Fairy Queen, what we really want, I think right now, is we want Mass Flight, right? So Mass Flight gets us a very effective combat trick, I think, to put any army from Hinam in the dirt. So we want to kind of just hold until we can accomplish that. So we're gonna hole up in Morini for now, and we're actually gonna throw, again, we'll talk about a lot of this stuff, but we're gonna throw down a temple. We're gonna preach. We're gonna try to get our dominion here so that we can kind of gain some benefits from that. Maybe start spawning some Ko-Oni, etc., etc. So fingers crossed that all goes well. Depending on what Hinam decides to do, though, things could get a little dicey, right? If Hinam strikes out and tries to catch some of my raiding, that could end up with some dead Dione. Or Hinam might actually just attack Morini, and depending on how much he is able to bring to bear, the fortification here is 500. So, I mean, we're going to have a lot of siege defense here, so we might be able to prevent him from breaking things down, but those Rephites and Long Dead Rephites are really strong. They have a lot of siege strength, so that might get dicey. But we're gonna try to see how it goes, right? So fingers crossed there. That's mostly all of our movement and stuff like that. Other than that, I don't think there is anything else crazy to report. we do have the throne of bureaucracy has been taken from Helheim. That's this throne right here. Ubar has successfully taken it, which is kind of what everyone has been kind of waiting for. There's also another throne that is under threat from Lanka, I believe, right? Which actually, if that develops, puts Lanka into a bit of a potentially challenging position for, well, not challenging for them, challenging for the rest of the game. So now there's kind of like this scenario where eyes are watching both Lanka and Helheim. And Helheim's not out of the running yet, but Helheim is definitely being slowly whittled down by the combined forces of Ubar and Lanka. So the imminent threat to the end of the game seems to have passed, and now we're in this jockeying position for, who's going to be the next big bad? Who do we need to, work out a strategy against, etc., etc. And when I say we, I mean the rest of the game, because we're just killing Hinnom. Because we tried to shoot our shot earlier, and we got slapped down by Helheim. So right now we're actually just in negotiations with a lot of people for potential trading situations and trying to take out Hinnom. And if we can do that, then we will see what happens from there. So let's talk about what is actually happening this turn. You've seen a couple of things because I've been clicking around, but in Marini we are building a temple, so +1 temple right there. Pretty good. And the whole purpose of that, right, is to one, hopefully we're gonna have control over the territory of Hinnom sooner rather than later. So we'll need temples there to have our dominion spread and be able to spawn co-onis, etc., etc. But also, if we can get that preached out and actually get this temple up and get our dominion here, that does give us a few small bonuses for fighting in our dominion, right? And being able to spawn ko-oni or other oni or things like that. We're only going to be able to spawn ko-oni and maybe some cold versions of the aka-oni here, but is what it is. What else are we doing? We are doing some recruitment throughout. We are recruiting now our first sorceress. So here, let me just do this. We're doing 1 Oni Shugo, 1 sorceress, and 1 scout. And we will talk our way through that real quick. So, of course, we talked about this a fair amount last turn, but sorceresses are a potentially very interesting option for us. We've started the recruitment for our first sorceress. We wanted another scout. Cool, great, fantastic. And actually, this turn we are getting an Oni Shugo here in Yomi rather than a Dai Oni, and that's mostly because we had a very bad income turn. We didn't really prepare for income this turn, and I basically made an executive decision to go for a sorceress rather than more Dai Onis, along with a temple, right? So temples are not especially cheap. Actually, our temples are very cheap, so we just don't have any money. That's basically what it is. We're just broke. Yeah. Anyways, is what it is. So no Dai Oni this turn. Oni Shugo. Need more scouts, and we're going for a sorceress. That's why our recruitment is what it is. Rituals. We've got 1 augury, 2 auspex, 1 gnome lore, 2 haruspex, 2 reanimations, 3 corpse constructions, and 3 summon shikome, actually. So, let's talk about what those are and why we're doing them. Site searches are pretty simple. We're just continuing to do the site search stuff that we have been doing. Right now we have our new fairy queen doing some auspex along with our god, just because air continues to be the one thing that we have the least amount of site searching done for. So we're just gonna toss it out there as quick as we can. Hopefully, I mean, we got really lucky that one turn. If we get just a little bit lucky, in a couple more of these auspexes, we could have 15 to 20 air income, and that would be amazing. We could make so much use of that. Unlikely to happen, but it is what it is, right? Um, and then like the rest of the stuff is very typical. Again, just finishing out a lot of our site searching. Reanimation, I think we're doing reanimation over here. Yeah, so we're continuing to reanimate in Yomi in order to try to obtain more more patrollers, more units to be able to utilize, but just converting some of our death gems into power, basically, at this point. The same thing with the corpse constructions. We talked about that a lot last turn, so we're doing corpse constructions around our empire, right? Some in Grey Mountains, some in Ulm, some in Scardian Vale, and that's because we want more bodies, more siege chaff, etc., etc., and corpseman construction is very cheap and very efficient in what it produces, right? Like, so here's corpse constructs. I think this is the first term that we've actually have them. Very high HP. If you put, like, they're very crappy because they don't have any armor or anything like that, right? But if you put, they take buffs well, right? Like if you put Army of Lead or Gold on them, they now have 20 protection. Okay, cool. You can put magic resistance on them so that they're not absolutely horrible or getting obliterated all the time. I mean, they still get obliterated a fair amount, right? But the more you put on them, the more that they are able to kind of like deal with some stuff. They do have some decent built-in resistances, so shock, cold, and poison resistances because they're undead. They are amphibians, so those are options for us later on. They are mindless, which can be both a blessing and a curse. And they do actually have this little overcharged stun shield that isn't terrible, right? So these are not great, but you can get so many of them for so cheap, and they do have 15 strength. So they are 2.3 siege chaff, or 2.3 siege strength. So very, very decent. The alternative, and this is probably a better idea, truth be told, but since we have such high conjuration, probably it would be better for us to just summon some Great Eagles, right? They're going to be as effective siege chaff as the corpse constructs. Actually, they're going to be better, and they're going to be way more mobile. The issue is it requires an Air 3 to do Great Eagles. Now we do have an Air 3 that we have easy access to in the Fairy Queen. We also do have our God, right, that's Air 4. So we could have them producing Great Eagles rather than us doing corpse constructs all throughout our empire. But the thing about that is the corpse constructs that we're doing right now is 3 air gems, right? The Great Eagles that we're doing right now, or that we could be doing, is 8 air gems. Is it better? Yes. Is it more mobile? Yes. Is it a superior version all the way around? Yes. Right? But it's also just a more expensive variant that we don't have as... I mean, we could do it once a turn, every turn, but I'm trying to also build some other options. We'll see. I think... I don't know. I have opinions on both, but we'll see. And then, aside from the corpse constructions, we have the summoned Shikomis that we're doing over here. Shikomis aren't... I don't think we actually have any Shikomi left. I think they all died. So we'll have to show them off again next turn. But, so, Shikomi aren't especially strong. They don't hit very hard, but they do hit multiple times. They have multiple attacks. And they can be very good at chewing through mages, right? They also paralyze. So the hope here is if we have a little horde of Shikome on top of our other individuals, that we can potentially have them, you know, when we do this mass flight, we can have them do some pretty good work. The other thing is they do also take a bless. They are sacred. So our bless is more of a defensive bless. shock resistance, regeneration, awe, right? So it's not going to be that great. But if we are able to finish off Hinnom, right, and we're able to turn our attention elsewhere, maybe we can take some of Helheim, maybe we attack Ermor, maybe we have to end up fighting against Lanka because they're the next big threat, or Ubar because they're the next big threat, right? Like, depending on the situation, if we could maybe pick up a couple thrones here or there are some thrones, right? Throne of Fire, that gives pretty good stuff. Attack skill +3, right? Like, Throne of... What is it? Not the moon. There's another one. Defense skill +3. That's still more defensive. There might actually not be that many. Oof. Oofa doofa. Precision +3. We don't care about that. I think there might basically just be one. Yay. Well, that kind of shoots my argument down, doesn't it? We get magic resistance +1. Again, that's defensive. There's not really very many offensive options here. Regardless, having Sacreds, right, can be very nice to take the Bless, even though Shikome are more geared towards offense than they are defense. Having a defensive Bless on them is still going to be nice. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to convert our Death Gems into some power for us that might be useful in the upcoming battle against Hinnom. The other thing being, right, is we know... I have 691 siege strength here. We know we are not going to be able to siege down Hinnom in a single turn. We couldn't do it previously, right? And now there's an army in there. So if we're going to beat that, we need to do it with some additional summons or some additional strength. We've got some coming in from these Ko-Onis, so that's good. Right, but we're gonna need more. So, just looking for opportunities for things like that, basically. Anyways, moving on. I've been jack and jaw about this for eternity. We've got some forging, and our forging is 1 Flesh Eater, 1 Dragon Helmet, 1 Alquill, 1 Shademail Hauberkin, 1 Scutata Volturnus, 1 Armor of Knights, 1 Boots of the Messenger, 1 Amulet of Anti-Magic, and 1 Ring of Regeneration. Let me jot that all down, and we will talk about what it is we are actually doing there. So, we've got... I'm trying to put together gear sets at this point now, right? And also produce a couple of little extra things. So, we did know fire gems because I'm potentially trying to store up some fire gems. Specifically for fire brands, right? I think that's probably going to be the plan. Maybe not, but we'll see. And then the other stuff that we're doing, like Dragon Helmet, Scutata Volturnus, Armor of Knights, Boots of the Messenger, Amulet of Anti-Magic, and Ring of Regeneration. That's just standard gear set stuff, right? The Shademail Hauberkin, we've done one of those before, and that is basically... just setting up the concept of... So one of the things I really like to do with, like, liches is I like having Shademail Hauberkins and Amulets of Anti-Magic on them, because that lets them stealth attack when you're raiding someone down, which I think is very, very effective for a lich. And then an Amulet of Anti-Magic allows you to not get mine hunted very easily, basically. So... that's kind of like a very basic gear set that I really like doing for liches. So that's kind of what I'm setting up over here right now. And then the Flesh Eater, I think, is the newest unique thing, probably. So the Flesh Eater is kind of semi-insurance, I guess. So one of the things that I have noticed in our fights against Hinnom is we actually do end up in a lot of situations where we might win some fights, but then we rout, right? One of the potential downsides for Dione is they don't have the craziest... They're not, like, unbreakable, right? base morale 18, hostile dominion knocking him down to 17. Now this guy has some experience, so he's a little higher, but just as a base, 17 when you're raiding around in someone else's dominion is not that hard to beat. Especially not if an enemy has fear and they have the ability to actually hit you relatively hard every once in a while, right? That can cause Dione to rout very easily. The Flesh Eater is kind of like a way to get around that potentially, but it is also somewhat suicidal. Who's doing it? Yeah, Kurofumi's doing it. So here's a Flesh Eater. It's a decent weapon. It hits pretty hard, but what it does is it drives you berserk, right? So like if you get hit while you are using a Flesh Eater, you will go berserk and you won't rout at that point. So it's a very risk versus reward kind of situation. But if we have access to a couple of Flesh Eaters, we could potentially throw some Dione into some maybe dire situations and rout big parts of an army, or potentially kill a bunch of people, right? Before we get into a scenario where we actually have to fight an army itself. If we don't have a Flesh Eater, though, we don't have that option at all, right? It might not work, it might not be a good option, but right now we don't have the option at all, so that's part of what we're doing, is I'm trying to give myself access to some more options, Flesh Eater being one of them. And that's pretty much it as far as what we are doing this turn, except for one little thing. And that is, we are sending Urmor 40 Astral Pearls. Because the immediate response to Helheim putting up Vengeful Water has been, oh shit, that's bad. If Helheim is allowed to keep Vengeful Water up, they might actually be able to repel Ubar and Lanka. Vengeful Water is very, very good at screwing around with people's thugs and raids, right, basically. And that's part of how Helheim is being chipped away at by Ubar and Lanka. Ubar and Lanka are both great nations for raiding a person down because they have very good thugs, very mobile thugs, right, that they can send out in large quantities to just attack a bunch of different locations, right? And if Helheim has something like Vengeful Water that is able to counter those thugs, well, then Helheim doesn't have to focus on counter raiding as much and can go focus on being offensive instead. So for clarity, we don't want that to happen. So we're throwing basically the collective vote was, let's try to get Vengeful Water dispelled. And we're all throwing in an amount of Astral Pearls into Urmor. Urmor happens to have probably the best Astral Caster for this, so has the best chance of actually dispelling. So we should see that go down shortly. Now, this is not just a me trying to help out the globe here scenario. This is also done from a selfish standpoint, because I was wanting to put up Well of Misery. Now we've got all these slots filled. If we can work with the team, right, to get Vengeful Water down, and then there's a slot opened back up, then I can throw up Well of Misery without having to contest anybody else for the actual slot itself. So, or in theory, right? Like, I might still have to contest someone. We'll see how it goes. So that's generally all that's going on this turn. So hopefully things are going to continue going well with Hinnom. I'm relatively confident in our idea with the Fairy Queen. It's just a matter of if we have enough time to pull the idea off. So next turn, we will have Enchantment 6. It will take 2 more turns after that. Is that correct? We got... Yeah, it should be 2 more turns after that. So, on turn 62, 63, 64, we will have access to mass flight, and we will be able to script it, is the thing. Because it doesn't help us to have access to it, because we're going to have access to it a turn before we are able to script it. So we have to be able to script it for it to matter. So that's turn 65, is that correct? No. Let's turn 64. Okay. So anyways, yeah, that's the plan. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.